Hi, I'm Avaris, and this is Under the Thorns. We are on chapter 12. Last time, the head housekeeper turned out to be evil and part of an evil, horrible ritual that was part of the curse that is binding Edward to the manor and all that. This chapter, we will see what becomes of our little plan confronting her as she went after Brandon, who is already sporting a stab wound. We'll see how this goes. Sighed Clara. The situation in the basement unfolded with a severity beyond my initial expectations. My grip on Edward's hand tightened as I surveyed the scene. Olivia clutched a dagger, and Brandon appeared pallid. He bore the signs of injury from attempting to disentangle the marionette from Olivia's grasp. As I poised to intervene, Edward, without conscious thought, cried out. The unsettling sound of Olivia's movement, akin to an unoiled, jointed doll, accompanied her swift turn. Her eyes, the lone beacons in her weathered countenance, exuded an otherworldly gleam. Olivia's lips twitched unnaturally, and she spoke in hushed tones. "You're too late, Edward."
ダメだ
No! Almost instinctively, Edward approached them, compelling me to do the same. With a seeming shift in focus, Olivia suddenly directed a disconcerting gaze towards me. In her eyes flashed a disquieting luminosity, my mind flooded with disturbing imagery. The unfolding sequence of events held me in a transient silence, caught between unspoken words and imminent danger. In a sudden and decisive move, Edward emerged from the shadows, seizing Olivia's arm to halt her assault. A deft twist of her shoulder ensued, a masterful display of combat prowess from an unexpected source. Olivia contorted in a manifestation of rage, yet Edward's grip remained unyielding. As the dagger slipped from Olivia's grasp, Edward only then lifted his gaze to meet mine.
大丈夫クララ
Are you okay, Clara? I'm fine, but... In that tense moment, I found myself at a loss for words. A confluence of gratitude and the realization of my peril formed a knot in my throat. Don't mind me. Let's talk when this is over. What escaped my lips was a deliberate deflection, an expedient strategy dictated by the urgency of the situation. Shifting my focus to Brandon, I approached cautiously to assess the extent of his injuries. Mercifully, the inflicted wound proved less severe than feared. Despite the pallor resulting from blood loss, a sigh of relief resonated between Edward and me, while Brandon, in contrast, knit his brows in contemplation. I suppose I'm getting old. I'm not what I used to be. Amidst the charged atmosphere, Olivia, a subtle presence until then, disrupted the equilibrium with a cryptic headshake and spontaneous laughter. Ha! You were the same even in the past. Hard to deny. The complexity in Brandon's eyes mirrored the escalating tension. Edward's gaze shifted from Brandon to Olivia. Olivia responded to the tightening grip on her wrist with a derisive sneer, her impish grin adding a layer of mockery to the situation. You seem angry.
それじゃダメですか
Can't I be? In response to Edward's cold retort, Olivia only replied with a mocking smile. I see. You still don't know the sins you bear. The sins all originated from Robert. What else could possibly remain? Edward's brow furrowed slightly, suggesting he too harbored some suspicions.
父が母を助けるために悪魔を召喚したことは知っています
I do know that my father summoned a devil to save my mother's life.
あなたがなぜこの仕事を続けるのか理解できないけど
Though I don't understand why you're continuing this in his stead. Even as he spoke, Edward's demeanor retained a certain deflation, suggesting the presence of concealed truths that remained tantalizingly beyond reach. Olivia's response, a mix of bafflement and dread, resonated with the weight of Edward's confession. You've really been living in the dark, haven't you? A cacophony of laughter erupted from Olivia, her shoulders heaving with unrestrained mirth. Abruptly, her focus shifted to Brandon, and an intense, venomous glare emanated from her. Despite being cognizant of her attention being elsewhere, a chill coursed down my spine, sensing the intensity of her hostility. Veins protruded on Olivia's visage, and through clenched teeth, she uttered malicious words. I'm not surprised. What could that cowardly Brandon have said anyway? That coward wouldn't have said anything. In response, Brandon flinched, attempting to articulate a reply that remained imprisoned within his mouth. Olivia seized the silence as an opportunity, reveling in her element as she derided Edward. Perhaps that's a blessing for you. Sometimes it's better to know nothing.
それはどういうことだ?
What do you mean? It's better for you to live thinking that you are just a poor victim seeking comfort in that. You become clean. How convenient. Edward's gaze, seeking answers, flicked to Brandon. He only exhibited a silent inner turmoil, manifested in clenched fists and shut eyes. No, Edward, you didn't do anything wrong. This is all our fault. Now you're playing uncle. That's hilarious. With a seamless fluidity, Olivia revealed an obscured dagger from beneath the fabric of her skirt. Edward, dodge! My lapse in vigilance, trusting the false security of Olivia's discarded blade, unfolded as a grave mistake. Edward, swift in his evasion of a hastily swung blade, released his grip on Olivia. Olivia pivoted to face me. In that fleeting exchange of gazes, an unspoken understanding materialized, signaling a shift in her elusive intentions. With Brandon incapacitated on the ground, the onus to intervene fell upon me. However, as I moved to confront Olivia, an unexpected force restrained me. I fell to the ground, startled, fixating my gaze on Brandon's resolute figure. A sudden shift occurred as he threw himself in Olivia's direction instead of mine, as though he deemed it a resolution to this entire disconcerting spectacle. Why? Observing the dagger's descent into Brandon's chest, I uttered a muted expression of disbelief. Both Edward and I stood motionless, mouths agape, grappling with the horrifying scene unfolding before us. Unperturbed, Olivia callously cast Brandon aside, closing the distance toward me. Her gaze lingered just beyond my line of vision, fixated on the marionette that Brandon had dropped. I rose, cradling the puppet hauntingly resembling Edward in my arms. As I slowly retreated, Olivia offered a peculiar gesture. Clara, I assure you, if you give me that, you'll get out of here safe and sound. A strange proposition to spare the lone observer of this crime. The notion struck me as absurd, and a nervous snort escaped my lips. I'm not foolish enough to be deceived in a situation like this. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Lifting my gaze, I peered beyond her. Me too. In a decisive move, Edward seized Olivia, throwing her toward the altar. The ensuing collision sent cascading candles, transforming the vicinity into flames. Among the consumed items was Edward's portrait. Olivia, with a frantic urgency, scrambled to her feet, clutching the portrait as though it cradled profound significance. Unfortunately, the flames had already devoured more than half of its essence, rendering the prospect of restoration bleak. No! Damn it! After a moment of emotional upheaval, Olivia cast the portrait away, her countenance transforming into that of a tormented soul. Mad laughter erupted, mingling with the echoes of her incomprehensible muttering. I was almost there. Absurd! This is absurd! Have I corrupted myself just to see my plans fail? Following her lament, Olivia's gaze, now imbued with an unsettling sadness, turned toward me. Rivulets of blood descending from her eyelids conjured an illusion of tearful distress. What a shame, Clara. Ouch. Amidst Olivia's enigmatic utterances, a mysterious warmth tinged with crimson surged forth from her being. I stood in bewilderment as she crumpled to the ground. A distant howl penetrated the air, leading me to turn and witness Edward holding Brandon, his face etched in despair.
ブランドン、しっかりしてください。目をつぶってはいけません。
Brandon, damn it. Open your eyes. Wake up. Despite Edward's impassioned pleas, Brandon wore a smile, resigned to the inevitable. Tenderly, he brushed Edward's cheek with a hand stained by blood. I'm sorry, Edward. I didn't want to hurt you. I should have told you, although it hurts.
大丈夫です。後で一緒に話しましょう。今は言わないでください。
It's okay. We can talk about it later, but not now. Not now. I'm afraid it's too late.
嫌です。あなたさえ失ったら僕は。
No, I can't lose you. Whenever there is a meeting, a parting shall follow. Cough! Words escaped Brandon's lips in a gurgle of blood before his last breath. Despair etched itself across Edward's face, intensifying with each strained gasp. Brandon, with determined eyes, forcibly shifted Edward aside. Hurry. If you linger here too long, you won't make it out in time.
ブランドン。
Pull yourself together. Remember what you promised Clara. His eyes then met mine, conveying a resolute certainty. The words he had shared with me earlier reverberated hauntingly in my mind. By the way, Clara, thank you. Thanks to you, I finally mustered the courage. As acrid smoke permeated the air, the ominous prospect of entombment loomed. A decision had to be made. For Brandon's sake, for Edward's sake, a solemn respect for his choice became imperative. We have to go. We have to go.
クララ。
I tugged on Edward's arm, and as he beheld my tears, he clasped my hand. As we ascended the stairs, the resounding collapse of the ceiling accentuated the urgency. I couldn't bring myself to turn back. The voracious flames danced, reducing the cabin to embers and ashes. Within the fiery embrace, Brandon and Olivia likely met their end. Gazing at the conflagration, I wore an expression of profound despair. All who held the key to the truths of that fateful day were now lost, their secrets consigned to the relentless flames.
あまり時間が経っていないみたいだ。
It doesn't feel like much time has passed. Edward.
今日見た夕焼けもこんなに赤いのに。
The red hue of today's sunset was as intense as this one. I gently rested my hands on his shoulders, and he reciprocated by laying his over mine. The dried remnants of Brandon's blood on his skin crumbled with every movement. Together we stood amidst the haunting glow of the burning cabin, his weary gaze locked onto the consuming flames. The residue of loss lingered in the air as he, a man stripped of everything, stared into the void for a long time. With the passage of time, the expanse of the manor yielded to the resilient embrace of nature. Interrupting my task of clearing overgrowth, I straightened my back, stiffened from the labor, and cast my eyes upward to the canvas of the blue sky. In this dilapidated realm, marred by the traces of black soot, life persistently asserted itself. Seated with knees drawn together, I tilted my head in contemplation. Wouldn't you agree, Brandon? Head rested on my arms, knees cradled against my chest, my gaze fixated on the solemnity of the tombstone. A futile longing to engage in conversation with the departed occasionally tugged at my heart. Alan sighs every so often, adding one more tombstone to this mausoleum. A nostalgic chuckle escaped me as I recalled the man's heavy sigh upon beholding the near gutting of the manor house. Despite our designated roles as first responders, both of us grappling with the aftermath of trauma proved ineffectual. Consequently, it was Alan, the head butler, who bore the burden of shedding blood, sweat, and tears to procure the funds essential for the house's reconstruction. The formidable challenges inherent in the role of head butler became glaringly apparent. Beneath the verdant carpet of grass, I found myself immersed in a question that perpetually lingered. a constant companion to my thoughts. Was I being too selfish? The insistent thought gnawed at me. My steadfast desire to disclose the truth to Edward had seemingly disrupted the seamless flow of events. The fire had not spared even Robert's once impenetrable study, smoldering it to ruins. And the truths Edward sought were now ephemeral, carried away on the winds of destruction. A sigh laden with frustration escaped my lips as the distant cadence of footsteps reached my ears. Approaching me with a bouquet of flowers, Edward's eyes, still imbued with a cerulean depth, conveyed unspoken sentiments. Standing before me, he took a moment to select his words with care, extending a greeting in his familiar manner.
いいお昼だね、クララ。どこにいるか探したんだけど、ここにいたんだね。
Good afternoon, Clara. I was looking for you, and here you are. Of course, this is my duty.
もうこんなことしなくても。
Your duty? I mean, you don't have to do this anymore.
君が望むなら何をしてもいいけど。
Well, feel free to do as you please. In response to Edward's bemused reply, a fleeting smile played upon my lips, concealing any hint of sorrow within. Edward placed the bouquet upon Brandon's tombstone, closing his eyes in a moment of prayer. The wind whispered secrets, and birds ascended into the sky, vanishing behind a puffy veil. In this contemplative landscape, Edward assumed the guise of a mysterious painting framed by the unseen hand of nature. Blinking, I watched until Edward concluded his prayer, slowly reopening his eyes. The tempest within his azure gaze had given way to an inscrutable calm. In that moment, memories resurfaced. Memories of the last time I shared this mausoleum with him, a day as pleasant as the one unfolding us now. In the moment our gazes converged, Edward graciously extended an invitation, his smile indicative of a cordial gesture.
ちょっと歩く？
Would you like to take a walk with me? Sure. With dignified courtesy, Edward extended his hand toward my seated self. Devoid of any compelling reason to decline, I accepted his hand, rising to my feet. Rather than the anticipated release, Edward maintained our connection, guiding me into the garden with our hands intertwined. As I watched him navigate the lush vegetation, a gentle breeze whispered secrets, and I unconsciously tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. The garden, once ensnared in the wild embrace of overgrowth, embarked on a meticulous journey of rebirth, row by row. The sight of the garden's revival evoked a sense of refreshment, prompting frequent visits, even in the absence of a specific purpose. Despite my belief in maintaining a veil over my struggles, it became evident that Edward had astutely discerned my emotional turmoil amid the swarming emotions. Consequently, he often led me to this tranquil sanctuary during moments of melancholy, initiating discussions on a myriad of topics. Demonstrating his commitment, Edward directed my attention to a carefully chosen plot for a flower bed, adorned with pots gifted by Brandon. He extended an offer to import seeds from my homeland, a gesture I politely declined. The roots of my departure from my childhood hometown had long grown beyond the tendrils of homesickness, rendering the prospect somewhat awkward. Despite Edward's apparent endeavor to settle a silent debt, such gestures in their essence felt superfluous. It was I who wanted to stay by his side in the first place. My gaze ascended, drawn to him by an unseen force. His observation, unnoticed until then, lingered on me. I'm glad, though, that you can sleep well now.
僕もだ。
Yes, I'm glad too. With the enchanter now gone, the peculiar occurrences within the manor dissipated. No longer did disembodied voices reverberate, nor did shadows lurk in the obscurity. However, for reasons unknown, Edward remained confined within the manor's boundaries. If only he could be liberated definitively, bereft of all leads and confronted with a dead end. Edward leaned on the pendant to navigate each passing day. Yet not everything succumbed to the flames. My resolute commitment to inhabit this manor endured. Time stretched generously before us, and I vowed to confront the lingering curse alongside Edward. Hope persevered, a distant glimmer on the horizon. In a lingering gaze, our faces eventually parted, turning toward the unfolding landscape.
もし考えが変わったら教えてね。
If you ever change your mind, let me know. Certainly. A brief moment of hesitation, and he gently released my hand, veiling his face.
その言葉は旅立ちたいという言葉にも聞こえる。
This also applies if you decide to leave. Loneliness etched deep lines into his expression once more. Cruelly gentle, I pulled his hand away from his face, intertwining our fingers tightly and staring directly into his eyes. I'm staying by your side to fight the curse, because that's the promise I made. At my declaration, Edward smiled, lowering his head for a gentle kiss. The cool touch of his lips prompted the closure of my eyes. His breath lingered, sparking a selfish thought. Was it wrong to find solace in his continued existence amid the scratching pain and sadness? The pressure lifted from my lips, and I cautiously allowed my eyes to reopen. Edward's gaze, soft and warm, mirrored the sunlight enveloping our shared space.
クララ、僕はあなたがどこで何をしてもいつも尊重されることを望んでいる。
Clara, I want you to be respected no matter where you are or what you do. What's this about all of a sudden?
いつもそうだったというのはおかしいだろうか。
Would it be awkward if I said I've always felt that way? With deliberate grace, Edward descended to one knee, his lips tenderly caressing my hand as he whispered words that lingered in the air.
あなたを世界の誰よりも大切にしたいです。
I want to cherish you more than anyone else in the world.
僕と一緒にいる瞬間だけは傷つかないようにしたいです。
I want to ensure you're not hurt when you're with me.
それで全てが終わったら正式にプロポーズしてもいいですか？
So, when all this is over, will you marry me? His sudden and stirring confession left me momentarily speechless. I hadn't anticipated Edward confessing before I did. The desire to respond affirmatively warred with the weight of societal distinctions. In a state of flustered contemplation, I verbalized the answer that had occupied my thoughts. I thought we were always going to be together anyway. No, I don't mean this. Are you all right with me?
あなた以外に誰がいるでしょう？
Why not? I'd rather ask if there's something you desire in return. Why? You deserve better, Edward.
もう望むすべてが目の前に立っています。
The person standing before me is everything I could wish for. So if there's anything you'd like, please tell me. Suppressing the urge to stomp and scream in the face of overwhelming embarrassment demanded an extraordinary effort. I was thinking the same thing, so that should be sufficient. Oh my god. Oh my god! I instinctively wrapped my hands around my head in response to the shocking exclamation. Edward illuminated with a crescent smile. Even though he was the one who proposed, why was it me feeling so embarrassed? I insist, it's enough. Stand up. I gently pulled on his hand, effortlessly coaxing him back onto his feet. Before us lay the canvas of our new haven, a manor that bore the potential to morph into our perpetual resting place. A shared moment of reflection preceded the imminent trials that awaited. In the grand scheme of things, the concept of eternal damnation seemed trivial, rendered inconsequential by the omnipotent force of unadulterated love. My head found a resting place on Edward's shoulder as we gazed upon the lush surroundings enveloping the manor. I love you. Edward responded with a nod, and the pendant suspended from his neck emitted a resplendent red glow. It gleamed with the light of life. End. Normal ending. The Eternal Nest. So, as expected, I totally messed up and we did not get the best possible ending. But I'm pretty happy with this playthrough. This was nice. This was a really fun novel to read. Really lovely visual novel. Absolutely loved it. And that was Under the Thorns. Well, thank you so much for going on this with me. If you've seen all of this, then wow, that's a lot, and I hope you had as much fun as I did. I hope you guys can check out the game. It's absolutely gorgeous. The writing is beautiful. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, just based on when I first started this off. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you next time, and have a good one. Bye!